Congrats on your new float. Let's get that installed. You're going to need some tools to get this installed. Go ahead and grab the tools listed on the screen. In the box with your clutches was a float kit, which includes a float spacer, float shim, and float spring. You'll need these to install your clutches. Step 1. Clean the crankshaft and the clutch taper with either acetone or brake cleaner. When installing with the KWI 630 bolt, make sure you apply ARP lube between the bolt head and washer as well as on the threads. Failure to do so can result in damage. Step 2. Go ahead and grab your torque wrench with a 22mm or 7/8 socket and tighten that primary onto the crankshaft. Ensure that you're torquing to the manufacturer's specs. Warning: OEM bolts are stretch bolts and can break. Step 3. Go ahead and clean off your secondary splines using acetone or brake cleaner. If you're finding that there's some rust on there, go ahead and use some Scotch-Brite and get that cleaned off. After you ensure that the splines are clean and free of rust, go ahead and apply some moly grease. Step 4. Install the KWI Wave spring onto the shaft. Step 5. Align the splines and slide the secondary clutch onto the shaft. And if you're having trouble, don't worry, it will go on. This does take some patience. For real, it will go on and it does take some time. Just take a breath, step away, and come back to it, and it should pop on. Once your secondary set's in place, go ahead and ensure that it floats by pushing back and forth, and that spring should push the secondary back towards you. Step 6. Install factory step washer. Then one thick, one thin float shim, and then the float spacer. Make sure you're doing it in this order and direction. Step 7. Insert your secondary clutch bolt and lightly tighten. Step 8. Spin secondary clutch 10 turns counterclockwise by hand while pulling lightly towards you on the helix. Step 9. Make sure that the belt is centered by using your cell phone to take a photo of the belt straight on in between the clutches. If your belt is not centered, adding shims will move the belt away from the motor. Removing shims will push the belt closer to the motor, so just get that centered. Step 10. Take your 17mm socket and 1/2-inch torque drive and go ahead and torque that down to factory specs. And make sure if you got a float package with a clutch kit to properly calibrate your clutches. And if you don't know how to calibrate your clutches, check out our clutch calibration videos.